In this video, I will go over fraction-specific linear systems, and I will also go over substitution and elimination. But the first goal is to get rid of the fractions so that we can get into something more familiar. And to get rid of the fractions, all we have to do is get a common denominator. So in our first system here, first of all, if there is any term that is not a fraction, we want to make it a fraction, and we can easily do that by putting everything over 1, because anything divided by 1 is itself, so I haven't actually changed anything. Now we can look at our first equation and look at all of the denominators, 1, 4, and 1. The common denominator is 4. So now we're going to get that goal by multiplying the fractions by whatever we need to get that 4 on the bottom. So for the first one, I need to multiply top and bottom by 4. The second one is fine the way it is. And the last one times 4 again. Because 1 times 4 is 4, and that's the goal. So you kind of decide on the number based on your denominator, and then go from there. So that turns my equation into 4x over 4. The y over 4 stays as is. Negative 8 times 4 is negative 32, and 1 times 4 is 4. Now that all of our denominators are the same, we can cross them out. And the reason is because if you were to multiply everything by 4, it would cancel out that fraction. So now I'm just going to write my new equation. 4x minus y equals negative 32. And then I'll do the same thing for the next one. And the next one, my denominators are 3, 2, and 1. The common denominator would be 6, because 6 is divisible by 3, by 2, and by 1. So that means my first fraction, I'm going to multiply top and bottom by 2, because 3 times 2 is 6. The next one I'll multiply by 3, because 2 times 3 is 6. And the last one by 6, because 1 times 6 is 6. So now, for the first fraction, x times 2 and 3 times 2. 3 times y and 2 times 3. 2 times 6 and 1 times 6. Now all of our denominators are the same, so I can write out my numerators. Now I have a nice linear system, fractions are gone, now I can go back to my basics. In this system, you can do substitution or elimination. Elimination is nice because everything is lined up, the x's, the y's, the equal sign, the constants, but substitution is fine as well, because our y coefficient is -1, so I can easily isolate for it. Make sure whatever you're isolating for has a coefficient of 1 or -1. But when you isolate, it better be x equals or y equals at the end. So I'm going to do substitution in this example. And because I'm going to isolate for the y, not -y, so I'm going to bring the y to the right and the -32 to the left. And that gives me 4x plus 32 equals y. Now I can take what y is equal to, which is 4x plus 32, and replace it with y in the equation I haven't touched. So that's going to look like 2x plus 3. The minute I hit that y, I'm going to write 4x plus 32, and then equals 12. Now we are just distributing the 3 in to get rid of the brackets. So now it should look familiar. 3 times 4 is 12x. 3 times 32 is 96. Now I'll bring the 96 to the other side, being careful to switch the sign. But I'm also going to do 2x plus 12x, which is 4x. And 12 subtract 96 is -84. And then we can divide both sides by 14 to get rid of that coefficient. And we end up with -6 as our x value. And at this point, you can choose to plug x into either equation, whichever one seems easier to you. I'll just plug it into our second equation. So 2 times -6 plus 3y equals 12. So that's -12 plus 3y. Let's bring the -12 over. It becomes positive. 24. And when we divide both sides by 3, we get 8. And make sure you write, therefore, point of intersection is -6, 8. And you can always check your work in the first equation, the one you haven't touched. So really, after you get the common denominator in that first step, then you're back to your basics. But let's try another one. So our first step, take the non-fractions and put them over 1. Now let's find some common denominators. So for our first step, we have 8, 4, and 1. 8 would be the lowest common denominator, but if you're not great with finding a common denominator, you can always just use the shortcut, which is multiply your denominators, and that will give you a common denominator. So 8 times 4 is 32, so 32 is guaranteed to work. But 8 is just the smaller number, and it just also means less work. So the first fraction is fine the way it is. The second one I have to multiply by 2, and the last one by 8. So that will give me x over 8 minus 6y over 8 equals 8 over 8. For the next one, I have 4, 2, and 1. My common denominator here should be 4, although you could also use 8. That would be fine as well. The first fraction is fine. The second I'll multiply by 2, and the last by 4. So that I have 3x over 4 minus 2y over 4 equals 8 over 4. And now at this point, I'll cross out those common denominators and write out what I have. So x minus 6y equals 8. 3x minus 2y equals 8 as well. And in this scenario, I will do elimination to practice. So remember, with elimination, you can choose what you want to eliminate. I will choose my x's. So my common multiple here between the 1 and the 3 is going to be 3. So I'll multiply my first line by 3, but the second line is fine the way it is. So x times 3, negative 6y times 3, 8 times 3. The second equation, I'll write it. And now I just have to decide, should I add or subtract? Subtract, because 3 minus 3 is 0, and you're always coming back to that subtraction. So 3x minus 3x is 0. Negative 18 minus negative 2 becomes negative 18 plus 2, so negative 16y. And then 24 minus 8 is 16. When we divide both sides by negative 16, we get negative 1 for y. And now again, your choice where you plug it in. I'm going to go into the first equation because it seems easier. So x subtract 6 times negative 1 equals 8. Careful with your signs here. Negative 6 times negative 1 is positive 6. So that when I bring it over, we change the sign and we get 2. So therefore, point of intersection is 2, negative 1. Okay, so that's it for your fractions. Okay, getting that common denominator, crossing it out, and going back to your basics. I'm going to do one more example where we have binomials in the numerators. All right, so here is a more complicated example because I do have some binomials in the numerators. So first step, like always, is put everything over 1 if it needs to be over 1. For my first set of fractions, 4, 1, and 1, the common denominator is 4, which means the second and the third fraction should be multiplied by 4. So that will give me x over 4 plus 4y over 4 equals 40 over 4. So my nice new equation that I'll write on the side, x plus 4y equals 40. So that one I'm ready to go with. The next one, I look at my denominators and I have 2, 4, and 1. 4 is the common denominator again. They don't have to match, but they just do in this case. So the first fraction will get multiplied by 2. Because I have a binomial on top, everything has to get multiplied by 2, so I'm putting brackets around it. And the last one has to get multiplied by 4 as well. Now, just to be on the safe side, I'm going to put brackets here to make sure I distribute properly. It also helps you avoid mistakes if there had been a subtraction sign in front of the fraction. So at this point we can cross this out, and I'm just going to do some cleanup on the side here. So I have 2 times x plus 2 plus y plus 3 equals 52. If there had been a subtraction sign here, I would have to put my y plus 3 in brackets so I could distribute the negative in. But we don't in this case. So let's clean up. 2x plus 4 plus y plus 3 equals 52. And the reason I'm not writing it in my good section is because I do want to clean this up to have x's, y constants lined up. So I'll kick the 3 and the 4 to the other side. So 2x plus y equals 52. Subtract the 4, subtract the 3, which is 45. So 2x plus y equals 45. And that's what I will now go in here and write. And now you can do substitution or elimination, whatever works best for you. I'll just do this one with elimination, and this time I'll eliminate my y's to mix it up. So between 4 and 1, 4 is the common multiple. This one I'm just going to rewrite. The second I will multiply by 4. And then 8x, 2x times 4, y times 4, and then 45 times 4 is 180. To get rid of the 4 y's, subtraction would be the way to go. X minus 8x is negative 7x. 4y minus 4y is 0. And then 40 minus 180 is negative 140. And then we can divide both sides by negative 7. And x equals 20. And now plug in wherever we want. I'm actually going to go into my second equation. So 2 times 20 plus y equals 45. 2 times 20 is 40. And when I bring the 40 to the other side, it is subtraction. So y equals 5. And like always, therefore, point of intersection is 20, 5. And there it is. So find a common denominator, get it for that first equation and for that second equation, then you can cross things out. Clean up your equations if you have to, so everything lines up nicely. If there is a binomial or 2 terms in your numerator, make sure you use brackets to do the distribution, and be careful if there is a negative anywhere in front of your fraction. But otherwise, that's it. You get rid of your fractions and then back to basics.